Okay, so we are coming full circle and we are going to talk about how anthropology is actually useful. So what is applied anthropology? It's basically what it says on the screen. Applied anthropology uses the theory, methods, and ethnographic findings of anthropology to solve human problems. Applied anthropologists work all over the world. They are practitioners who use cross-cultural knowledge and anthropological methods for research and action around the world, not just from a university base. They're found in business, government, health, education, and human services domains. They can also work for congresswomen, in hospitals, in school districts, research and consulting firms, or even state and local governments. They are often researchers, but more and more they don't just study problems. These anthropologists are often administrators, program directors, and even business owners. They craft and manage solutions. They confront a ton of special challenges. They are called on to offer the anthropological perspective, a view of humanity grounded in a tradition of cross-cultural scholarship and action. They can work in teams with other professionals, and they must be able to communicate across disciplines. Applied and practicing anthropologists build bridges between cultural worlds. They may make videos or write explanations of policy or research for a lay audience. They blend respect for cultural difference and awareness of common humanity. So combined with interdisciplinary research methods, they can help make policies, programs, and plans that improve human well-being around the world. Applied anthropology refers to the application of anthropological data, perspectives, theory, and methods to identify, assess, and solve social problems. So anthropological training is actually useful in these broad areas of life. Remember that anthropologists are trained observers. What anthropology teaches that is outside of the college setting is extraordinary. And remember, if you let the subject take you over, it will change the way you see the world forever. Anthropologists have long held three views about applying anthropology. The ivory tower view is a very traditional view. It contends that anthropologists should avoid practical matters altogether and focus on research, publication, and teaching. The schizoid view holds that anthropologists should carry out but not make or criticize policy. And then finally, the advocacy view argues that since anthropologists are experts on human problems and social change, they should make policy affecting people. This view says they should identify locally perceived needs for change, work with those people to identify culturally appropriate and socially sensitive change, and protect local people from harmful development schemes. Professional anthropologists work for a wide variety of employers, such as tribal and ethnic associations, governments, and NGOs. So the advocacy view really is the sort of more modern, if you will, view. But all three views really are in place today, and I'd like you to consider which view you sort of identify the best with while you're doing the discussion this week, because it really does ask you for your opinion and where you think the place of anthropologists is in the world. So we see that applied anthropology had its origins during World War II. During World War II, anthropologists worked for the U.S. government to study Japanese and German culture from a distance. But in general, anthropology's ethnographic method, holism, and systemic perspective make it uniquely valuable in application to social problems. Applied anthropologists are more likely to focus on a local grassroots perspective in approaching a problem than to consult with officials and experts. And what we see with applied anthropology is while the academic employment center continues to shrink, so this started in the 1970s, but academic employment is shrinking consistently year after year, but policy research employment really did expand. And so according to a study of PhDs conducted by the American Anthropological Association about 30 years ago, non-academic employment of anthropologists peaked at 51% in 1986. In the early 1990s, about 1 in 3 new graduates in U.S. anthropology departments found employment outside of academia, and this trend is definitely continuing. According to this same American Anthropological Association annual questionnaire, 29% of PhDs in the early 2000s found non-academic employment. Overall, there are more non-academic career opportunities available to PhD anthropologists currently than there are jobs in the academy itself. So when we talk about the academy, we're really talking about the university. According to these figures, applied anthropology accounted for an average of 7% of new PhDs awarded in the U.S., with cultural at 53%, archaeology at 26%, biological or physical at 12%, and linguistic at 1%. It's interesting to consider that these practicing anthropologists don't receive specific training in applied anthropology. They still receive very specific training in sort of the academic view of their subdiscipline. Practicing Anthropology, this journal in the pictures on the lower right-hand side of the screen, was published first in 1978 by the Society for Applied Anthropology as an attempt to voice the concerns of practicing anthropologists, to bridge the gap between practicing and academic anthropologists, and to encourage the use of anthropology in policy research and implementation, and to serve as a forum for dialogue about the present state and future of anthropology. Applied anthropologists find themselves in a host of careers with multifaceted job descriptions, and I want to describe two major types of anthropological practice. The most frequent role they have is that of researcher, but applied anthropologists are often in so many other roles: implementers, mediators, administrators, activists, health, education. They find themselves in international development, legal planning, energy policy. There's so many different places they can work. And so in these types of anthropological practice, we see first intervention anthropology, and this combines several different approaches. The first is action anthropology, and so they look at the goals of community self-determination and they create value explicit strategies. They combine research and development anthropology approaches, and they look at research-based participant intervention, and they implement community development programs. So this is a self-help group action through community participation and voluntary cooperation. They're also involved in advocacy anthropology. They facilitate community-based action by providing data and technical assistance. They also assist in cultural brokerage, meaning they provide an intervention approach linking people of equal but different socio-cultural systems. And so they provide an individual in between these two systems to sort of broker conversations. And finally, they do social marketing. So this is a research-based strategy that combines commercial marketing with applied social science to assist people to change to beneficial behaviors. So that all falls under intervention anthropology. Policy research combines several different methods as well. The first is the methods of social impact assessment. So they collect sociocultural community data for use by development planners. The second is evaluation research. So they determine the success of a project. Third, they implement technology development research, and they act as a communication link between producers and users of new technology. And finally, cultural resource assessment. These folks identify the impact of federal development on archaeological sites and historic buildings. I actually did cultural resource assessment for many, many years before I had 4 kids and really couldn't work 60 hours a week anymore. And there are numerous examples of how each subfield is represented in applied employment. Archaeologists are found working for the National Park Service with forest, fishery, and parks. They're also found in the museums, so they work in the development of exhibits, and they also work in education programs, public education programs. And archaeologists, most archaeologists are actually found in cultural resource management, those who are doing applied archaeology. And cultural resource management refers to excavations and surveys done to gather as much data as possible from sites threatened by construction or other projects. Some forensic anthropologists rely on techniques of physical anthropology and archaeology to assist in medical and legal cases. And linguistic anthropologists may design bilingual education programs. Cultural anthropology is really where we find the bulk of applied anthropologists. and they frequently consult with other professionals to facilitate the extension of health, economic, and other services to various populations. So let's start with education. Anthropologies help facilitate the accommodation of cultural differences in classroom settings. Examples can include English taught as a second language to Spanish-speaking students. They also get involved in different culturally based reactions to various pedagogical techniques and help improve teaching. And they also look at the application of linguistic relativism in the classroom with regard to different vernaculars or different languages. They can look at urbanization. Human populations are becoming increasingly urban, so they study the differences between rural and urban contexts. Various instances of urban social forms are studied, and in an effort to really understand how urbanization is affecting more rural communities and vice versa. Medical anthropology and health is a huge part of the applied field. Medical anthropology is both academic, so it's theoretical, and applied, so it's practical. When we look at medical anthropology, it's the study of disease and illness in their socio-cultural context. And even though disease is a scientifically defined ailment, there are a lot of different theories about the causes of illnesses. Some are personalistic disease theories that blame illness on agents such as sorcerers, witches, ghosts, or ancestral spirits. Some are naturalistic disease theories that explain illness in very impersonal terms, like Western biomedicine does. And some are emotionalistic disease theories that assume an emotional experience causes illness. So, for example, susto among Latino populations. So when we look at societies with healthcare systems, anthropologists can really help improve their systems, because healthcare systems consist of beliefs, customs, specialists, and techniques aimed at ensuring health and preventing, diagnosing, and treating illnesses. And so anthropologists can be really helpful in pulling in all of these theories of illnesses and helping healthcare professionals be more successful. There's a ton of different ways they're useful in medical anthropology. Other places we see applied anthropologists are in business. They study institutions such as businesses, and they can identify processes of micro-enculturation through which people in finite systems learn specific roles. More recently, there was a cross-cultural study of business practices that has become extremely important. So it's helped the business world globally really understand each other. Because of its breadth, a degree in anthropology can provide a flexible basis for many other different careers. So not just business, because businesses have certainly begun to recognize the worth of anthropological concepts like microcultures, but anthropologists also work professionally as consultants to indigenous groups at risk from external systems. Other employers of anthropologists include USAID, USDA, the World Bank, and there's private voluntary organizations as well. So when we think about anthropology, I really believe it has a crucial role to play in promoting a more humanistic vision of social change, and one that really respects the value of cultural diversity. The existence of anthropology is itself a tribute to the continuing need to understand social and cultural similarities and differences. So I'd really like you to think about that in the discussion. And make sure that you watch the videos before you engage in the discussion, because it really does give you some great examples of the way in which anthropology can be useful in a variety of different fields. As always, shoot me an email if you have any questions.